What would you do if the person you loved was slowly and systematically destroying your self-worth? Not with yelling or fighting, but with quiet, poisonous little jabs disguised as care. My boyfriend Liam was a master of this art. To everyone else, he was perfect, charming, attentive, supportive. But alone with me, he became the harshest critic, with one single goal: to make me believe that without him, I was nothing. It all started in the kitchen. I used to love cooking, experimenting with recipes, but every dish I made was met with his condescending smile. "Babe, this is a bold experiment," he'd say, tasting my pasta. "But maybe next time we could make something simpler, like how I cook." Simple, but perfect. He never said it was bad. He'd say, "Not quite right, interesting," or "an acquired taste." And slowly, I stopped going near the stove. Next, he took on my wardrobe. "That dress makes you look bigger," he'd casually mention. "And that color makes you look pale." My ex, Jessica, wore something similar, but on her, it just looked more elegant. Every comparison was a tiny pinprick, stabbing right at my heart. I started wearing only what he approved of, dull, shapeless clothes that made I felt invisible. The last thing to fall was my music. "Are you seriously listening to this? This is music for teenagers," he'd laugh, turning off my favorite song in the car. "Let's put on something with some taste." And he would put on his playlist. His words were like drops of acid, slowly burning holes in my confidence. I would look in the mirror and see a clumsy, tasteless girl who couldn't even cook a proper meal. I started to believe I was a walking disaster, and he was a noble knight, putting up with me out of pure pity. I became quiet, insecure, and completely dependent on his opinion. The breaking point came by accident. One evening, he thought I was in the shower and was talking on the phone with his best friend. I came out for a glass of water and overheard a sentence that changed everything. "Yeah, Chloe bought another ridiculous sweater," Liam laughed into the phone. "But you know, it's a good thing. The key is to keep her on her toes. If she ever realized how amazing she actually is, she'd leave me in a second. This way she thinks no one else would ever want her. Cold." That's all I felt. It wasn't concern. It was fear. His fear. He wasn't building me up. He was tearing me down so I couldn't leave. In that moment, instead of tears, I felt a burning, icy rage. My rage became my fuel. The next day, I found an ad online for a local amateur cooking competition, and I secretly submitted my application. I started cooking again. At night, while he was asleep, I perfected my signature recipe, the very one he had once called a bold experiment. A month later, there was a party at his friend's house. A big, loud crowd where he was the center of attention. "Bring something for the table," he told me. "Just don't cook, I'm begging you. Buy something pre-made." I smiled and nodded, and of course, I brought my competition dish. The evening went on as usual, until someone tried my lasagna and started raving about it. Liam, wanting to put me down again, laughed loudly. "Careful, is Chloe trying to poison us with her culinary masterpieces again? She has a real talent for making normal food unrecognizable." His friends chuckled politely. It was my time. I stood up calmly, picked up my glass, and got everyone's attention. "You know, Liam, you're right. My cooking is truly special," he smirked, expecting me to continue putting myself down. I reached into my purse and pulled out a folded certificate and a small gold medal. So special, in fact, that last week the judges of the city culinary competition awarded this exact dish first place. I placed the certificate and the medal on the table, right in front of his nose. A deafening silence fell over the room. Every gaze darted from the award to Liam's crimson face. His smile froze, then slid off his face like a mask. I looked him straight in the eyes, and for the first time in a long time, my voice didn't tremble. "I finally get it, Liam. You weren't criticizing my food, my clothes, or my music. You were trying to poison my self-esteem. Because you are a weak, terrified man who is afraid of being alone." I grabbed my purse and walked towards the exit under the shocked stares of his friends. "Well, you don't have to be afraid anymore," I said, turning back at the door. "I'm actually leaving." I closed the door behind me, leaving him alone in the ruins of his small, deceitful world. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel the sting of his words. I felt the sweet, intoxicating taste of victory. My own victory.